What's happening? Monsterpalooza.
I'm going to jump straight in. Bernard, can you talk about writing Candyman and moving the story from the to the US?
It's a long time ago. It's my biggest memory of the film. My biggest memory was I was taken around Chicago. I went to Chicago for a scout, looking for a location, looking for an American city to set the film in, and I was taken around Cabrini Green, and I found it kind of a pretty shocking and illuminating experience, and decided to set the movie there. That was pretty much what happened.
And the idea...
Yeah, and I was standing on the street corner down by Howard and Vine, and outside of a liquor store, and he looked at me and said, "You look like you could be in the movie."
That's exactly what happened.
And next thing it is, I don't know nothing about no movie, man. I do real life. And, you know,
that's exactly
what
happened.
Did some murder and stuff, did some mayhem, and I was ducking my parole officer, and next thing you know, I'm out here in Hollywood.
The idea of using a housing project as a haunted house, can you talk about that?
I could talk about it, but I won't. No, I'm just kidding. I think ultimately, there's so much stuff out there about Candyman that it's very hard to talk about stuff anymore, because it's sort of, it's like every aspect of it has been kind of, you know what I mean? It's been 32 years. Has anybody got anything that they'd like to know which they haven't heard about?
Does anyone have a question?
Here's the thing, the myth has grown and grown and grown. It's kind of like a snowball going not down the hill, but up the hill. And the more people you talk to, the more people swear he's real. The more people I've met that said they grew up with him. A couple people said they knew him when he was a baby. I'm personally from Washington, D.C. And, you know, all I know is that movie changed my life, and I have this man here to thank for it, because he wrote and adapted the source story from a short story. Thank you very much.
I mean, the character that you play is so elegant, and it's such an elegant character. I love the grace you bring to that character. Can you talk about finding that and finding the pain in that character?
My whole point of view, I mean, I grew up with the classic Universal monsters. So I had Phantom of the Opera in mind, I had Bella in mind, I had the height of Boris. And I wanted to make something that was relatable to modern audiences at that time, particularly to my community, the African American community. I wanted to give them a pathos and a pain that was unscripted at that point. And Bernard gave me the blueprint, and we had a wonderful cast and a great crew. The acoustics in here are really weird.
They are.
I can hear every word you say, Tony, 15 times.
Everybody repeat after me. Betty Butter bought some butter, but she said this butter is bitter, but Betty Butter, bitter, make her bitter, batter, better.
Can you talk about his awareness of his own tragedy? Because you've talked about that before. The Candyman is aware of his own tragedy.
Yeah, but I think his whole point is not to wallow in the tragedy, but to escape it, to rise above it, you know, in however way he can. If he's missing not only a hand, but a spirit. So, you know, he's an elegant man. I love the character. I love embodying him. Even though, if you look at the original film, his screen time is limited. I think it's a total maybe maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20 if I'm pushing it. But he's talked about it. And I learned a lot. It was early on in my film career. And I learned a lot that you don't have to be in every frame. You don't, I'm a cook, so if you're in the kitchen, you have all these pots and pans and dishes, you don't have to use all of them. You use the ones that are needed. And that's sort of my metaphor for him.
With the limited, he is in it about 15 minutes. Was that a deliberate choice to make him more scary or make him more powerful as a character?
Well, I think it's a kind of thing with horror movies is that the anticipation for a character is always more interesting than actually when you see them, it's always a letdown in a weird way. If it's meant to be something that's terrifying and strange. And so, I mean, he doesn't appear until halfway point.
38 minutes.
38 minutes.
45 seconds to be exact.
And that's my theory as to why it's always very difficult to make sequels to horror movies, because in the first one you can anticipate the reveal, and once you've revealed the monster, whoever in whatever the movie is, a weird shift of allegiance happens with the audience where they start to side with the monster and not with the people who are supposedly running from the monster. And so at that point, either the monster just kills more people or starts telling jokes. One or the other. Which is why, after a while, all horror sequels become comedies. It becomes, I think it's one of the interesting things that the only person who really solved it was Billy Friedkin with the first Exorcist, because the monster is inside the little girl, and you never see him. You only see the effect the monster has on the little girl. But I think the point about Tony and his character in the film is that he's a romantic figure. He's a man from the 19th century. He's not an avenging angel. He's not trying to kill anybody. He only comes if you call him. He's something very, very different. He's more romantic than he is horrific. I think that's the point.
I love that. I love the romance of that character, and that coat is so beautiful. It's so you said the coat really helped you, right?
Sorry?
The coat really helped you. The wardrobe helped you.
Everything helped me. I come from the theater, so I learned early on that every department is necessary to the creation. So once I met Leonard Pollock, was the name of our designer, and he had this coat on me. And once we had that, we had the ascot, we had the herringbone pants, even the shoes, which you rarely see except in the parking lot sequence. Everything was tonality.
He's dressed to go to the opera, that's the idea.
Yeah.
Did you wear the shoes all the time? Did you wear them in every scene to help you with your character?
I'm sorry?
Did you wear the shoes all the time when you were performing, even if they weren't seen?
No, I did all the other scenes barefoot.
Yeah. Can we show the second? Can we show the second clip?
Just a clip.
Is it true you had Virginia Madsen hypnotized? You hypnotized her?
Well, I think it's true, but after 32 years,
yeah, it was true. They would shut down the set for 10 minutes at a time while they did this hypnotism.
But there is something that happens to her in her performance. It's kind of amazing. That dreamlike state is incredible.
Yeah, I think it's that thing of the idea is that when she's encountering the Candyman, that it's not necessarily really happening. It's a sort of fugue state that she's in. But, I always, I never wanted the film to be read solely as strictly having one interpretation. I think the film is from her point of view. So it's what she thinks happens, but it isn't necessarily what happened.
I love Xander Berkeley as an actor, and the fact that you used him as the counterpoint to the Candyman. Can you talk about that?
Well, Xander is, he's an interesting character. He's been killed in a lot of films, I think. Must be a reason for it. Yeah, he was just a really good actor. It's very hard to find. That was a role that wasn't really made explicit in the book. It just, her character wasn't really, her actual private life wasn't really explicit. So I kind of fleshed that out, and then wanted somebody really good to do it, and there was Xander,
I'm a huge fan of Mark Coullier. I think he's now a 3-time Oscar winner. He did some of the makeup effects for Candyman. One of the things that I think is amazing, can you talk about having live bees in your mouth? Was that?
What name did you give?
Mark Coullier. Bob King did the main effect, but Mark Coullier made the mouth guard.
I think Bob Keane was the person who did all of it. I don't remember anybody else.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I remember Bob had dysentery halfway through the film and didn't turn up for about a week.
Wow.
Maybe that's what happens.
Can you talk about how was it to have...
I came back, he was 15 pounds lighter, and I thought, that's a good diet.
Can you talk about the bees in your mouth?
Yeah, we had this bee wrangler on the set, Norman. And I remember before we even started shooting, he said, Tony, you want to meet your co-stars? And he opened up a trailer, there was this buzzing sound and greeted me. And he thought it was funny. He closed the door behind me. And literally, we had this trailer filled with baby bees. But baby bees are supposedly harmless. However, I got, over the course of the first film, I think I had 26 stings. My agent at the time got me $1,000 per sting, so that sort of took some of the pain away. But still, when you get on your lip or on your right nipple or down below, it's not as fun as it should be. But you do the things you do to make a movie come to life. And as an actor, I felt I was giving up my blood. Everything about the film, I think, came together, from the costumes to the wonderful sound design that we had, to the cast, Virginia Madsen, extraordinary group of people.
Well, it's also very, very much true that a big difference between the first film and all the sequels is that in the sequels the bees are fake, and in the first one they're not.
The sequels, they were half fake. We still had some real ones.
They look fake.
Bernard hates the sequels, and I understand it. The original's a template. It was what broke ground, and we're proud of this film to this day. Every time I see this man, I thank him for giving me this role. So,
can we have clip 3? Can we have the B clip?
Could we have the B clip, please?
And then the C clip.
That's amazing. So beautiful.
How's that for a romantic introduction? Huh?
Yeah.
Love it.
But it's actually very beautiful.
It is.
Were you taking it? Did you take any inspiration from any painters or anything for this? Were there any painterly inspirations?
I did actually do paintings of that entire sequence, but they weren't based on anybody else's work. The bee thing came from, and this is in the story too, is it came from the tin, a syrup tin, Tate and Lyle, which was a syrup tin that was in the UK, and it was a green tin, and it had a gold design of a lion with a cavity in his belly and a hive of bees in it, and bees coming out of this dead lion. And it's one of the riddles of Samson, where Samson is asked, out of the strong came forth sweetness. And the riddle was that there was a dead lion, and the bees had built a hive in there, and he took honey from the corpse of the lion. But one of the reasons that, and I know that's where Clive originally had the idea, is he got it from a syrup tin. But also Tate and Lyle, Helen's character is called Helen Lyle in the film. And of course, Tate and Lyle were one of the original sugar plantation owners in the Caribbean. And of course, hugely involved in the slave trade in terms of shipping people over to work on their plantation. So I think that the whole thing has a sort of strange circular reference in that Lyle was a big-time slave trader. So every time you eat that syrup, think about that.
We're going to just show can we show the final clip? And I have one question. I'm not sure how much time we have left. I think we may be out of time. Can we show the final clip, please? That must have been... How was that to shoot that scene?
That was real fire, like real bees. It was actually quite... I didn't really like doing fire stunts because, you know, if they go wrong, people are going to get very seriously injured.
Was it dangerous for you?
It's a safe set. I mean, the beautiful thing about this, the cast, Virginia and I, we had such a bond that we weren't going to let anything happen to each other. We trusted each other. And I think that's what, you know, you have so many films made where people aren't speaking to each other, we're just discord. If you have a connection, it's going to last. The thread that keeps the silk together, you know. So.
I'm going to I have one more question for you, then we'll open up for a couple of questions. What has the legacy of this film been for both of you?
It got me a better agent. So I've been working non-stop ever since this movie came out. And I think, you know, both my kids have gone to college, and I thank God for that. And the impact that the movie has made. Every time I go to Chicago, I'm a hero in Chicago, thank you. I love the blues, I play guitar, I go to blues bars, and they always bring me up on stage, so.
Yeah. And for you, Bernard, what's the legacy of the film for you?
I mean, I think it's interesting because when I made the movie, nobody really liked it that much. I mean, it was finished. Clive liked it, but the producers were they didn't care for it. They thought it was some nasty little horror film. I don't know what they thought of it. They were involved in making what they thought were much more important films. So they didn't pay it much attention. But as soon as it became successful, you know, failure is an orphan and success has many fathers. And as soon as the film was a success, the producers decided that every damn thing that they thought was about this film that was good was because of them. And the most important thing to do was to get rid of me as quickly as possible, because I wasn't somehow easy to deal with in their opinion, or whatever. So, you know, they made some sequels. The first one was well made, but was honestly quite boring. The second one was nobody talks about. And
I talk about it.
yeah, I've never seen either. I've never seen any of them.
And how do you know whether it was good or not? Christ, this guy.
Well, you know, the thing is, I suppose, with the myth is we always want more, right? We always want more of the story. We kind of crave more. And you have to be very disciplined not to give that to an audience in a way.
Well, I think that's true. And the honest truth is, I don't think I really would have been the right person to have made a sequel because you know, they asked me initially how I thought the story should go and what the Candyman should do in the second one. I said, I don't know, because he died at the end of the first one. So that's it, right? But I know it doesn't work like that. And I think that I like it. I'm really glad they made the sequels, and I think especially the most recent one I'm especially glad that Jordan Peele made that one. And I think that what I especially like about them is that they have to pay me. And I'll tell you a funny story. This is true. Jordan they were in production on the more recent Candyman. And the people who had bought the rights had optioned it through a circuitous route, because it was originally Polygram who paid for the film. Polygram got bought by Universal, then MGM ended up buying some of the rights to remake films that were in part of another package. So these copyrights got shuffled around in a big mix, and they ended up at MGM. And MGM developed the film with Jordan, and they developed it with him before Get Out came out, and before he became a star. He was going to do that, and he'd written the screenplay, and then Get Out made him a big star, and he didn't want to direct it anymore, he just wanted to produce it, which is fair enough. And of course, because they purchased these rights from company to company to company, they never purchased or even look at the underlying documents in the chain of title, so they have no idea. So they thought by owning the rights to the remake and the rights to the story, they could do what they liked. So I knew this, and I knew this wasn't the case. And I waited until they were 2 weeks away from shooting. And I called up this guy at MGM, who I'm sure is no longer there. They probably fired him the next day. And I called him up, and I went to see him. And I said, "Oh, I'm so happy that you're making this this sequel to Candyman." He went, "Oh, it's not a sequel. It's a spiritual sequel." I said, "Oh, well, what does that mean?" I said, "Let me ask you a couple of questions." I said, "What is the Candyman?" He goes, "What do you mean, what is the Candyman?" I said, "Well, who's playing him? You know, what race is he?" And the guy was like a little bit quiet. He went, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, is he a white guy?" And the guy went, "No, of course he's not." I said, "Oh, okay. And where does he appear?" I said, "Does he appear in Cabrini Green in Chicago?" Anyway, and I could see the color coming out of his face. I said, "Because I've got some bad news for you. This movie that you're about to go into production with, you don't own." These guys sent me a check within 48 hours, but I just wish I'd been there when this guy had to phone up Jordan Peele and say, "This film that you're prepping, this film that you're about to shoot, I'm terribly sorry. We told you we had the rights and we don't." Can you imagine? I don't care, but why is it that it's okay never to ask the person who actually made it? You know, this whole thing of work for hire is fine, but at this point, it's 32 years later, and if they're still interested in making it, why, they'd ask anybody, but the idea if they had to involve me or ask me, it just terrifies them. They didn't even have Tony in the sequel, and they tested it, and the thing tested down the toilet, so they had to spend a fortune bringing Tony back to put him in the film.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Yeah. I think I've got time for one. Harry, have we got time for one question, or are we out? No. 4 minutes, one question from the audience. Yes, please. Can you say it really loud?
I want to ask a question you've already heard before. Is there a story from Candyman that you'd like to tell and you don't get to tell that often?
I think I just told it.
What about you, Tony? Is there a story you'd like to tell that you don't get to tell very often from the film?
I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, and I remember when the film came out, they gave me a whole bunch of promo material, and I went and donated it to the housing project that was perpendicular to where I grew up, and I gained the biggest fans in the world from that gift, more so than all the fans I've met through all my travels, because it was like I was flesh and blood. I was a Hartford kid that didn't grow too big, but had succeeded, and that was so important to young kids who were 8, 9, 10 at the time. I was also a teacher at one point, so that meant a lot to me.
That's amazing, isn't that beautiful? I think we're out of time. Thank you very much.
We're out of time!
Out of time. I'm sorry, everyone.
What?
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you guys for coming. Have a wonderful Monsterpalooza!